ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। नष्टप्रायेषु वभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवतीरुत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी। ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपकदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकम्। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामीनिति नामिने। नमस्ते सरस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभो नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। Hare Krishna, reading from Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. By His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. We are reading from Canto 3, Chapter 27, Understanding Material Nature. So we are in the discussion where Devahūti is asking question. Text 17, previous text, she began asking questions. So now we come to text 19. अकर्तुः कर्मबन्धोऽयं पुरुषस्य यदाश्रयः गुणेषु सत्सु प्रकृतेः कैवल्यं तेष्वतः कथम्. Translation.
Hence, even though he is the passive performer of all activities, how can there be freedom for the soul as long as material nature acts on him and binds him? Purport. Although the living entity desires freedom from the contamination of matter, he is not given release. Actually, as soon as a living entity puts himself under the control of the modes of material nature, his acts are influenced by the qualities of the material nature, and he becomes passive. It is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, Prakruteha Kriyamanani Gune. The living entity acts according to the qualities or modes of material nature. He falsely thinks that he is acting, but unfortunately, he is passive. In other words, he has no opportunity to get out of the control of material nature because it has already conditioned him. In Bhagavad Gita, it is also stated that it is very difficult to get out of the clutches of material nature. One may try in different ways. To think that everything is void in the ultimate issue, that there is no God, and that even if the background of everything is spirit, it is impersonal. This speculation may go on, but actually it is very difficult to get out of the clutches of material nature. Devahūti poses the question that although one may speculate in many ways, where is liberation as long as one is under the spell of material nature? The answer is also found in Bhagavad Gita 7.14. Only one who hath surrendered himself unto the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord Krishna, Mama Evaye Prapatyante, can be freed from the clutches of Maya. Since Devavati is gradually coming to the point of surrender, her questions are very intelligent. How can one be liberated? How can one be in a pure state of spiritual existence as long as he is strongly held by the modes of material nature? This is also an indication to the false mediator. There are many so called meditators who think I am the Supreme Spirit Soul. I am conducting the activities of material nature. Under my direction, the sun is moving and the moon is rising. They think that by such contemplation or meditation, they can become free. But it is seen that just 3 minutes after finishing such nonsensical meditation, they are immediately captured by the modes of material nature. Immediately after his high sounding meditation, a meditator becomes thirsty and wants to smoke or drink. He is under the strong grip of material nature, yet he thinks that he is already free from the clutches of Maya. This question of Devahūti is for such a person who falsely claims that he is everything, that ultimately everything is void, and that there are no sinful or pious activities. These are all atheistic inventions. Actually, unless a living entity surrenders unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead as instructed in Bhagavad Gita, there is no liberation or freedom from the clutches of Maya. Hare Krishna.
Further, now Devotee is asking, hence, even though he is the passive performer of activities, how can he attain the freedom for the soul as long as material nature acts on him and binds him? Right. So, very, very intelligent inquiries by Devahūti here. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada explains that the living entity desires freedom, and as soon as living entity puts himself under the control of the modes of material nature, he is going to act helplessly. So at least in the conditioned state, our attempt is at least to hand over oneself to mode of goodness instead of rajogun and tamogun. Right. And this is Prabhupada mentions this prakrite kriyamanani gunai karmani sarvashah. Gunas are very strong, and that's why gunas are called as the ropes, tightly binding ropes. So although living entity thinks he is acting, but actually the modes of material nature are acting through him, and it is very difficult to come out of this material bondage. Duratyaya, Bhagavad Gita mentions very specific word, Duratyaya. Thus, a living entity may become frustrated and he may think that everything is void or I am only God. And sometimes there are such foolish meditations, Prabhupada, right? That they will say, think that you are God, and because of you, the sun is rising, and because of you, the moon is shining, because of you, the oceans are being controlled and held in the position. And people do like that. They, go in some meditation and keep thinking that they are God. But this is all, the very, very speculative, stupid activities. So here, Devotee is posing a very clear question, very intelligent question. She's saying that, my dear son, where is the liberation? The living entity is very strongly controlled by Maya and the gunas. So where is the liberation? And further in this sequential, Prabhupada mentions how people are falsely thinking. Recently, I saw a very funny video where a man, you must have also seen that, man is trying to stop the train. The train is actually going to come to stop, but he acts in such a way that, he thinks that he's only stopping the train. And after passenger, they get down, some passenger board the train, metro kind of a train it was. Then he again pushes the train. When train is about to start, he will push the train. So similarly, such speculators, they think they will sit in the meditation at 6:45 in the morning and they will say, oh sun, rise now. And they will open their eyes and they will see rising sun. They say, yeah, because of my command, the sun is rising. And this is how they will have all kinds of funny meditation. So Prabhupada says, Devotee question is for such people more, who will either claim themselves to be God or go to the conclusion of voidism and thinking that there is nothing called as good activity, bad activity, and have a messed up understanding. Bhagavad Gita gives very clear understanding that unless the living entity surrenders to the Supreme Lord, right, there is no question of liberation or freedom for the living entity. Daivi hesha gunamayi mama maya duratyaya mameva ye prapadyante mayam tesham tarantite. Taranti means duratyaya, very difficult to cross. Taranti, the next verse, there is an absolute contrast. Taranti means very easily one can swim. Anybody can do. There is a similar verse in Bhagavad Gita. What is that verse? Tesham sulabha partha. Yomam smaratintyashah. Okay. Text 20. Kvachit tattvapamarshena nivrittam bhaya ulbanah anivratta nimittva tvam punah pratyavatisthate. Translation.
Translation: even if the great fear of bondage is avoided by mental speculation and inquiry, into the fundamental principles, it may still appear again, since its cause has not ceased. Purport: material bondage is caused by putting oneself under the control of matter because of the false ego of lording it over material nature. Bhagavad Gita 7.27 states, Ichha Dvesha Samutena. Two kinds of propensities arise in the living entity. One propensity is Ichha, which means desire to lord it over material nature or to be as great as the Supreme Lord. Everyone desires to be the greatest personality in this material world. Dvesha means envy. When one becomes envious of Krishna or the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one thinks, why should Krishna be all in all? I am as good as Krishna. These two items, desire to be the Lord and envy of the Lord, are the beginning cause of material bondage. As long as a philosopher, salvationist, or voidist has some desire to be supreme, to be everything, or to deny the existence of God, the cause remains and there is no question of his liberation. Devahūti very intelligently says, one may theoretically analyze and say that by knowledge he has become free, but actually, as long as the cause exists, he is not free. Bhagavad Gita confirms that after performing such speculative activities for many, many births, when one actually comes to his real consciousness and surrenders unto the Supreme Lord, Krishna, then the fulfillment of his research in knowledge is actually achieved. There is a gulf of difference between theoretical freedom and actual freedom from material bondage. The Bhagavatam 10.14.4 says that if one gives up the auspicious path of devotion service and simply tries to know things by speculation, one wastes his valuable time. Klishyanti ye kevala bodha labhadhye. The result of such a labor of love is simply labor. There is no other result. The labor of speculation is ended only by exhaustion. The example is given that there is no benefit in husking the skin of an empty paddy. The rice is already gone. Similarly, simply by the speculative process, one cannot be freed from material bondage, for the cause still exists. One has to nullify the cause, and then the effect will be nullified. This is explained by the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the following verses. Hare Krishna.
Devotee further says, even if the great fear of bondage is avoided by mental speculation, but again it will reappear because the cause is not yet completely removed. Later in the sixth canto, it is the same very famous verse will come, Venu Gulmam Ivanalah. And then there is a story of Ashamil and glories of chanting the holy names. That by tapasa brahmacharyena shamena chadamena cha, by all these activities, some contamination may go away, but the roots will remain. And the example is that sometimes in the forest fire, the entire forest fire is destroyed, but with first rains, the forest will reappear. The entire bamboo forest will reappear. Similarly, sometimes by doing some tapascharya or this or that, one's sinful activities may go away and the result of sinful activities may go away, but still desire to commit sin is always there. And because the roots are not destroyed by this pious activity, as soon as there is opportunity, they will fructify into another set of forest. So Devahūti is also asking very, very intelligent, very similar question. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada explains that the material bondage is caused by two propensities of the living entity, Ichha Dvesha Samuthena, Dvandva Mohena Bharata. First is Ichha, desire to lord it over material nature. And second is Dvesha. Dvesha means envying the Supreme Lord or position of the Supreme Lord. And so these are the Prabhupada says these are the two characteristics especially which are beginning of the bondage. So what a beautiful word, beginning of the bondage. And this, therefore, one will see the philosopher, salvationist, voidist, they will have some desire to become either supreme or to control everything, or and because the cause still remains, there is no question of liberation. Devotee here she is saying that one may theoretically understand the knowledge, avimuktamanina, but as long as the cause is existing, and what is that cause? There are two causes. These are two causes are Ichha and Dvesha. Right? Two causes that is being mentioned. Ichha Dvesha Samuthena. So as long as the two causes are remaining, this theoretical understanding, one may have some temporary feeling of being liberated, but again, because the cause is there, the fever will reappear. Right. The real solution Prabhupada says here is one has to surrender to the Supreme Lord and raise one's consciousness. Right. Bahunam janmanamante jnanavan mam prapadyate. So, and this will come after many, many lifetimes. So, somehow by Krishna's mercy, if we have become Bhagyavan Jiv, coming to Krishna consciousness, chanting the holy names, one should realize, no doubt, it is mercy of the devotees in this life, but it is also Bahunam Janmanamante. To come to understand and accept the Supreme Lord is Bahuta Sukrutanchi Jodi, right? It is after many, many lifetimes we have come to this, the Ratna of Bhagavad Bhakti. Prabhupada says there is a gulf of difference between theoretical freedom and the actual freedom. So one may theoretically think I am liberated, I am Aham Brahmasmi, liberated. But actually, with the first train of sense gratification, one's propensity to lord it over Ichha and Dvesha will arise, and one will again fall to the material platform. Prabhupada says, without removing these two basic causes, all our endeavors in mental speculation, they are just like beating the empty husk, right? So, this is the analogy comes in Bhagavatam. When you have to take the rice out of the rice, the rice, their grains are inside the husk. But just imagine somebody has already taken the rice grains outside and only the empty husk is there. And one is beating that empty husk, thinking that by beating, more beating, the rice will come out. No, sir, there is no rice inside. Or, another analogy Bhagavatam gives is, chewing the chewed. That sometimes, you will see that गन्ने का what do you call it, sugarcane that is being crushed literally 10 times within the wheels and taken the every drop of every drop of juice is being taken out, and then they will throw that outside, and somebody takes that which is thrown, chewing that which is being chewed for 10 times and try to chew it and find out some rasa in there. There is no possibility. Right. The only thing they will achieve is labor. Avyakta hi gatir dukkham dehavadbhir avapyate. Klesho adhikatarastesham. Avyakta sakta chetasam. Avyakta hi gatir dukkham dehavadbhir avapyate. This is the result of speculation. Speculation will lead to more klesha. So one has to nullify the root cause. Right. One has to nullify the root cause. And what is that root cause? The root cause is Ichha Dvesha Samuthena. So when one lovingly engages in devotional service to the Lord, Ichha and Dvesha, they are nullified. And one can actually, when the root cause is nullified, the symptoms will also eventually go away. And that's why Janayati Ashu Vairagyam, very quickly, why a devotee develops jnana and renunciation, jnana, vairagya very quickly is because the root cause is treated very nicely, right? The root cause, Ichha and Dvesha, that is treated very nicely. Now we come to the next section where Lord Kapila Muni is going to recommend intense practice. So text 21 to 23, this is the next section. Sri Bhagavan Uvacha Animittanimitena Swadharmena Amalatmana Tibraya Mai Bhaktya Cha Shrutasambrutaya Chiram. Translation.
The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, one can get liberation by seriously discharging devotional service unto me, and thereby hearing for a long time about me or from me. By thus executing one's prescribed duties, there will be no reaction, and one will be freed from the contamination of matter. Purport. Sridhar Swami comments in this connection that by association with material nature alone, one does not become conditioned. Conditional life begins only after one is infected by the modes of material nature. If someone is in contact with the police department, that does not mean that he is a criminal. As long as one does not commit criminal acts, even though there is a police department, he is not punished. Similarly, the liberated soul is not affected, although He is in the material nature. Even the Supreme Personality of Godhead is supposed to be in association with material nature when he descends, but he is not affected. One has to act in such a way that, in spite of being in the material nature, he is not affected by contamination. Although the lotus flower is in association with water, it does not mix with the water. That is how one has to live, as described here by the personality of Godhead Kapiladeva. Animitta nimittena swadharmena malatmanaha. One can be liberated from all adverse circumstances simply by seriously engaging in devotional service. How this devotional service develops and becomes mature is explained here. In the beginning, one has to perform his prescribed duties with a clean mind. Clean consciousness means Krishna consciousness. One has to perform his prescribed duties in Krishna consciousness. There is no necessity of discharging one's prescribed duties. There is no necessity of changing one's prescribed duties. One simply has to act in Krishna consciousness. In discharging Krishna conscious duties, one should determine whether by his professional or occupational duties, Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is satisfied. In another place, in the Bhagavatam, it is said, Sanusti tasya dharmasya sansiddhir haritoshanam. Everyone has some prescribed duties to perform, but the perfection of such duties will be reached only if the Supreme Personality of Godhead Hari is satisfied by such actions. For example, Arjuna's prescribed duty was to fight, and the perfection of his fighting was tested by the satisfaction of Krishna. Krishna wanted him to fight, and when he fought for the satisfaction of the Lord, that was the perfection of his professional devotional duty. On the other hand, when contrary to the wish of Krishna, he was not willing to fight, that was imperfect. If one wants to
Yeah, so
perfect
it's
his
a long purport. We'll read in sections. Sri Bhagavan Now Kapila Muni says, Animittena nimittena swadharmena amalatmana tivraya mai bhaktya cha shruta sambrutaya chiram. Chiram here is generally when bhakti comes, the words are achiram, ashuhu. But here it is chiram. For a long time, prolonged time, one should be hearing the message of the Supreme Lord. One can get liberation by thoroughly discharging devotional service unto me, and thereby hearing for a long time about me Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, or from me. From means Bhagavad Gita. So, Bhagavad Gita and Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. By thus executing one's prescribed duties, there will be no reaction, and one will be freed from the contamination of matter. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada quotes Sridhara Swami and commentary, and Sridhara Swami makes a brilliant point. What an amazing point he says. He says, Sridhara Swami comments in this connection that by association with material nature alone, one does not become contaminated. Right? So the contamination begins, the conditioned life begins only after one is infected by the modes of material nature. Right? If someone is in the mode, comes and then he gives a brilliant example. Prabhupada says, just like somebody is in a police department. Simply because of one is police department doesn't mean that he's a criminal. No, he's in police department. But when one commits the sinful activity, criminal activity, then one is contaminated. Similarly, simply in the touch with material nature, one will not become contaminated. But when the modes are acting on such a personality, then always there is a chance there is contamination. And therefore, in Bhagavad Gita, the Lord is addressing Arjuna. Lord is asking Arjuna, my dear Arjuna, you are going to fight this. But this fight will not make you responsible for your activities in terms of you will not incur the sinful activity because of killing such millions of warriors. If you act on my behalf, yajñārthāt karmano Anyatra lokoyam karma bandhana. Otherwise, there will be bondage. But when you are acting on my behalf, O Arjuna, there is absolutely no bondage. In fact, more you act, more you will be liberated. And my plan, I will execute through you, and I will send all the 64 crore warriors back home, back to Godhead. Right? Through you, although the activity is very ghastly, he is going to kill in millions. And therefore, Bhagavad Gita says, Padmapatra ivambasaha. Padmapatra ivambasa means just like the lotus grows out of the kichad, right, out of the mud, but the lotus is unaffected by mud. Similarly, one can remain, Prabhupada says, one can be liberated from all the adverse circumstances simply by seriously engaging in devotional service. Tivraya cha mayi bhaktya, that bhaktena tivrena bhakti yogena, by intense devotional service, one can be liberated from material bondage. In the beginning, one has, and Prabhupada says, then there is no need of changing one's occupation. In the beginning, one can perform one's activities with the clean mind. And what is clean mind? Clean mind means mind which is Krishna conscious mind. There is no need to change one's occupation unless it is like very grossly sinful. Of course, then there are stories of such personalities also. Of course, we cannot imitate them. But there is a, later in the 11th canto, there will be a story of Dharma Vyadha, who was actually seller of the meat, and he was a great devotee of the Lord. Right. So, but Prabhupada has given us the path that one should have as cleaner activity as possible. And by the virtue of Kali Yuga, some good activity of Kali Yuga is that you can change your profession also and come to some cleaner profession in the sense. And then there is no necessity of changing one's prescribed duties. One can simply act in Krishna consciousness. And this is confirmed in, it is sthane sthitah shruti gatan tanuvan manobhir. Or later it is being svanushthitasya dharmasya samsiddhir haritoshna. One has to simply think that by my activities, whether the Lord is pleased or not. And when the Lord is pleased by one's prescribed duty, then ultimate perfection is achieved. Just like Arjuna, Prabhupada gives Arjuna's example. Arjuna, Lord says, my dear Arjuna, you fight. And perfection of Arjuna's fighting was pleasure of the Supreme Lord and not winning the fight. He won the battle. He paid the very heavy price, won the battle. But that was not the perfection of Arjuna. Perfection of Arjuna was to some siddhir haritoshanam. Yeah, please continue.
If one wants to perfect his life, he should discharge his prescribed duties for the satisfaction of Krishna. One must act in Krishna consciousness, for such action will never produce any reaction, animitta nimittena. This is also confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, yajnarthat karmanonyatra. All activities should be performed simply for yajna, or the satisfaction of Vishnu. Anything done otherwise, without the satisfaction of Vishnu or yajna, produces bondage, or here it is also prescribed by Kapila Muni that one can transcend material entanglement by acting in Krishna consciousness, which means seriously engaging in devotional service. This serious devotional service can develop by hearing for long periods of time. Chanting and hearing is the beginning of the process of devotional service. One should associate with the devotees and hear from them about the Lord's transcendental appearance, activities, disappearance, instructions, etc. There are two kinds of Shruti or scripture. One is spoken by the Lord and the other is spoken about the Lord and his devotees. Bhagavad Gita is the former and Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam the latter. One must hear these scriptures repeatedly from reliable sources in order to become fixed in serious devotional service. Through engagement in such devotional service, one becomes freed from contamination of Maya. It is stated in the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam that hearing about the Supreme Personality of Godhead cleanses the heart of all contaminations caused by the influence of the three modes of material nature. By continuous regular hearing, the effect of the contamination of lust and greed to enjoy or lord it over the material nature diminishes. And when lust and greed diminish, one becomes one then becomes situated in the modes of goodness. This is the stage of Brahman realization or spiritual realization. In this way, one becomes fixed on the transcendental platform. Remaining fixed on the transcendental platform is liberation from material entanglement.
Further, Srila Prabhupada explains, if one wants to perfect one's life, one has to engage in prescribed duties. And such engagement, when one is Krishna conscious and engaged in prescribed duty, will not lead to the conditional life. There will be no reaction. Animittena nimittena. Yajñarthat karmano anyatra lokoyam karma bandhana. Anything done otherwise, anyatra, will be cause of the bondage. And therefore, Prabhupada says, this is how one has to continuously perform devotional service, especially through hearing and chanting the holy names and message of the Supreme Lord. Dirgha shrutena. One has to, for a prolonged period, one should be hearing and chanting the holy names and hearing. Prabhupada says there are two types of literature when it goes to hearing, shruti, what to hear. One is about the Lord, Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. One is by the Lord, that is Bhagavad Gita. And both are very important. One must hear the scriptures repeatedly from reliable sources in order to become fixed in serious devotional service. One has to hear repeatedly. It's very important. Right? Like you will see, there are many devotees. In our regular reading also, we have this devotee family, Murid Krishna Prabhu, his wife. Then we have Priti Govind Prabhu. And there are many, many devotees like this. They have read Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita at least a dozen times, But still, they will be engaged in hearing repeatedly because that is the process. And by this process of hearing repeatedly, what happens? One will become fixed in serious devotional service. Nashta prayeshu abhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya. And the guarantee of Bhagavatam is, if one is hearing Bhagavatam every day, no amangal will happen in the life of such a personality. By continuous, regular hearing, the effects of contamination of lust and greed to enjoy or lord it over material nature will diminish. Tada rajastamo bhava kamalobhadayaschaye cheta etairana viddham sthitam satve prasidati. By hearing Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, by chanting the holy names, what will happen is, sthitam, the effect of rajogun, tamogun, which is kama and lobha, will go away, and one will be situated in the mode of goodness. And what happens at goodness? Brahma bhuta prasannatma. He will remain prasannatma. Na shochiti, na kangshiti. He's not non-ambitious. No, he's ambitious, but he's prasanna still, right? And this is the way Prabhupada says, this is the way one becomes fixed on the transcendental platform. And to become remaining fixed on the transcendental platform means attaining liberation. So we will conclude here and continue tomorrow. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Thank you, Prabhupada. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Prabhupada. Thank you,
Thank you,
Prabhuji.
Prabhupada.
Thank you, everyone. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhupada. Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.